Well, if you're a fan of Major League Baseball, and many of you are, you know the history of baseball goes back many, many years. The National League was formed back in 1876. The American League was formed back in 1901. So you have the American and the National, they play each other in the World Series, right? Well, the commissioner of baseball, a gentleman by the name of Rob Manfred, he has a vision, and he wants to see about possibly doing something that, well, might destroy the concept of the American and the National Leagues. Allow me to explain. It seems that he was speaking at the Little League World Series, which is going on in Pennsylvania right now. The best kids playing the best kids. And while he was chatting, he said, what I want to do before I retire is bring in two more teams. Wants to bring in Nashville and Salt Lake City. Now, the big realignment was started back in 2023 when a former GM by the name of Jim Bowden, maybe you may remember, he came up with an idea how to divide baseball, creating four teams in a division. Yeah, I know it sounds weird. Four teams in a division and 16 teams in a conference. So you'd end up having two conferences, a West Conference and an East Conference. It used to be National American. You have a West Conference, East Conference. And then all the teams within those conferences compete against each other to see who plays in the World Series. That way you've got one coming from the East Coast and you got another coming from the West Coast. Who does that help? TV. That's exactly what it helps. TV gets the real benefit of all this entire thing. So how would that divide itself up? Well, let's talk about that. The Eastern Conference would consist of the Eastern Division. Now that would be Boston, the New York Mets, and the New York Yankees, and the Philadelphia Phillies. Four teams, that particular division. Then the North Division would be the Cincinnati Reds, the Cleveland Guardians, I want to say the Indians, but can. Detroit Tigers and the Toronto Blue Jays. They're fighting in their division. The Mid-Atlantic Division would have the Baltimore Orioles, the expansion team, which I believe is Nashville, the Pittsburgh Pirates, and the Washington Nationals. And then finally, the fourth group out of that, Southeast Division, would have the Atlanta Braves, the Miami Marlins, expansion, and the Tampa Bay Rays. Now, that's going to create a problem. So you don't know where the expansion team is going to be, but that's kind of what's going on. So you get 16 teams in the East competing against the other 16 teams in the West. Now, the Western Conference would consist of the Midwest Division, which is the Cubs, the White Sox, the Brewers, and the Minnesota Twins. Then the Southwestern Division's got the Astros, the Royals, St. Louis Cardinals, and the Texas Rangers. Pacific Coast Division got the Rockies, the Athletics, the Mariners, and the San Francisco Giants. And finally, the West Division, you got the D-backs, the Angels, the Dodgers, and the San Diego Padres. That makes up the West. And now you see what's going on. So you have two divisions, the East Division, or the East Conference, the West Conference. Not American or National, you just have two conferences. And whoever wins on one side, whoever wins on the other side, they play in the World Series. That's kind of what they're talking about, folks. So you understand what could be happening. Now, on the bright side, and I want to mention this, also at the World Series game, Mr. Rob Manfred said in 2027, the Chicago Cubs will be hosting the All-Star game. Now, I realize some of you are going, really? The Cubs All-Star game? Yep. Well-deserved, folks. And the owner of the Cubs is doing a multi-million-dollar redesign, redo, fix-up, call it what you will, of Wrigley Field. So the good news is the Cubs are going to get an all-star game in 2027. The bad news is the American League and the National League could be disappearing when you have two conferences, the West and the East. And that's what will happen to baseball. That's if the commissioner gets his way before he retires in 2029. Will he? Only time will tell.